Okay, let's move to East Asia and look at some of the prehistoric finding there. And you see this pottery right here, which is from Jomon period in Japan, East Asia. Jomon meaning rope pattern. Jo, rope. Mon is the pattern, is the language, the sign, Jomon. And you can see from this visual just the way they decorate, right? The way they decorate the surface of the pottery is using the rope pattern, rolling the rope onto and actually an interlaced and woven material. Roll it across the surface of the pottery onto the clay, and sometimes with, as you can tell, with some kind of varied rolling movements to add to that the sense of decoration. So you're gonna see the word decorative again many times when we talk about Japanese art. So, but not to say that I think this has any relation to the entire Japanese culture, but that's something for you to think about. Why do they care about decorating it? And again, we have a different kinds of this rope pattern called the flame pots, which is from the Middle Jomon period, around 2500 BCE, about 5,000 years ago. It's a coiled clay vessel that looks like a flame, and it's a terracotta, low-fired ceramic that's available to them. This is before they get into this is before they step into the Bronze Age. Remember, we talk about prehistoric time from Neolithic, Paleolithic, Neolithic, and then eventually we step into the Bronze Age. And around the Bronze Age, people, some civilizations in the world, they already have their writing system, and that's when the history came along. But this is still before the writing system came along. So take a look at this pottery. And I want to direct us back to the textbook for a little bit, just a little bit, because, excuse me, because in the textbook, it's this part that talks specifically about the flame vessels. And they come to us in numbers, in great numbers. So it's still debating the function of these flame pots because they're not, well, anyway, let me explain to you why I want to mention to you this passage in this textbook, because I want to use this example, use this as an example to show you the basic way, the basic format of writing in art history. And that basic format is description. We have an object right here, and I want to convince people, I want to show people, I want to show the information that I want to show you. And I may want you to not look so much at the information that I don't care yet. So the description helps the writer, you or me, to direct your attention a little bit, to kind of like you're walking in the gallery, we have a tour guide, and the tour guide is there to look here, look there, but you can ignore things that you are not pointing to, right? Witty device right there, a little bit of witty manipulation right there. Don't think of description as so naive or objective a skill. So description, right? And you analyzed what you've described, what you've presented in the description, right? When you analyze, sometimes you bring in other information, other evidences, bring in a little bit of a context to help you mix things up, to help you do a little bit of the chemical reaction of the evidence and your explanation, right? Description, analyze, and then you reach at the very end, you reach for the conclusion with your finding, with what you've developed in the last two steps. And in our textbook, this is not an excellent example, but kind of a good example to show you how it works. And this is an example that it explains to you how this flame pots, flame vessels, the function, or to teach you the function. That's good in very basic writings, but it's good enough to write a textbook. Okay, so this is a court-marked terracotta pottery, right? And it says here, right, these Middle Jomon artifacts have white mouths, describing it. Pay attention to this. Has white mouths and surface decorations that organize the body into horizontal registers. This is the different layers, different sections of the vessel. We call it register. And you're going to find these terms again and again in the textbook, and even on the side that defines it. Okay. Organize the body into horizontal registers, similarly to the Jobum vessel, which is the other one, which is this one right here. But let's not talk about that one first. Vertical lines divide portions of the lower registers into panels, which are filled with patterns, occasionally interrupted by wavy lines or curlicues. This bounded visual energy expands considerably as the vessel's silhouettes broaden at their shoulders. Clay coils, swirls, and sinuous bands that rise and sometimes transform into looped handles. Form and decoration also merge at the mouth. She's continuing to describe it. Just describe, and describe in a fashion that you're gonna know how and why. Because it's trying to describe the movement, right, of these coils, of this patterns. And so form and decoration also merge at the mouth. The curved form leads the viewer's eyes around and around, while the play of textures appeals to the scene of to the sense of touch. Appeals to the sense of touch. Right? What's that sentence trying to get to? Coxcomb or flame-like embellishments are distinctive to the Middle Jomon period. This assemblage was excavated from a single site in Sasayama, west of present-day Kyoto. This is explanation, right? And then this is the conclusion. The conclusion even starts with a question, right? That to tell you what what kind of conclusion we're gonna arrive at. What do the visual and physical characteristics of these flame vessels suggest about the culture that made them? A question. The elaborate forms suggests, right, that's a conclusion, suggest a level of artistic experimentation which benefits from long-term settlement and surplus time, right? You gotta have time. You gotta be not so short of food and resources to have the time to decorate the vessel. And let's go on. Some ornamental parts are relatively fragile, and so the vessels may have been prestige objects used for ritual feasting and ceremonial display rather than everyday use. No wonder. It's not for everyday use. It's for rituals, ceremonials. That's why we decorate it. It's for some kind of ritualistic or spiritual events. Everyday objects might be in a more low-key appearance. This is too embellished. Let's move on to the last sentence. Soot and residue inside most of the vessels likely resulted from cooking food. Cooking food, right? Put the food in it and cook it, but the main purpose might not be just consume it as on a day-to-day basis, but it's a cooking things as a part of the ritual, of the ceremony. And why do I know that? Why do they arrive at this conclusion? Because of the description, right? They've explained to you this is the design, the whole design of it doesn't look like it's for everyday use. And then second step, explanation, right? To it, this flame-like embellishment, they come in good number. They come to us in good numbers. It could be a very common ritualistic device that's used by the people. And then conclusion. And that's a basic way of 3-step art history writing. And I use this as a segue to talk about writing. This flame pot, and we call this flame pot the way they were decorated. We call it addictive aesthetics, which is adding things to it. This is the aesthetics that by adding things to it, but not carve on it, but attach the ropes, attach the additional addictive terracotta or clay onto it. And then let's talk very briefly about the dogu, also found in the in Jomon period, but this is at a later time, the final Jomon period. The Jomon period in East, let's talk about that later. But dogu, let's focus on the dogu, this little figurine, this little statuette first. Let's pay attention to this little guy right here first. Let's not look at this one because I use this one to compare. And this is not from Japan. The Jomon period, the final Jomon period, about 3,000 years ago, from 1000 BCE. It has a nickname to it. The archaeologists, witty as they are, they give him a nickname. One nickname is the coffee bean eyes. A second nickname is the goggled eye, whichever you prefer. Let's pay attention. What's the function? Again, we ask when we encounter objects like this. We ask, what's the function of it? What's the meaning of this object? We start from describing it. Goggle-eyed, embellished, stylized clothing, dress, right? Some parts like the thigh, right, or the eyes, some parts are exaggerated, some parts are not. So it's a little abstract in terms of the shape of the body, in terms of the physique, and it's symmetrical. It's a symmetrical object. Right? Okay, I finished describing it. So let's explain a little bit. Well, you know what? We still do, where people tend to exaggerate or focus on the things that they care. So the function are likely to land on, to be related to things, to the features that are being exaggerated. For example, the eyes, right? Because that it reminds me of a different object from the Babylonian, which is a different place, right? In Middle East, in the ancient Babylonian, for example, that people their eyes being exaggerated because because archaeologists think the people at the time, they might think of seeing as a very sacred move. They're able to see. They're able to see the cosmology. They're able to see the stars. Seeing is such a sacred move, so they enlarge all those eyes on the figurines. And we don't know. No one knows if that is the case for this goggled eye. But it could be one assumption. An embellishment just from the priest king that we talked about in last lecture video, it might have to do with the hierarchy, the higher hierarchy, that it might point to his status. What do you think? Right? Because of the dress, because it's well embellished, the more decorative the clothing is, the more information the artist is trying to provide. And it's curly patterns. And I'd say even the breasts, it's a little bit exaggerated on the nipple way. So it might has to do with a little bit of the fertility figure, because exaggerating all the parts that's related to fertility. So if that's the case, it might be a god or goddesses that they worship in hope of better fertility for the clan, for the community to continue, so that they continue. They have produce more offspring, so they can continue the breath of the clan. So these are all conjectures from reliable observations, description, explanation, and then reach for a conclusion on this dogu, little object. And I bring in this one. Is when this is a figurine from not Japan, but the places from that last a couple lecture videos back, the Mohenjo-daro, in between the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa area, in the middle of that, still nowadays Pakistan, those early civilizations in Asia, where those civilizations happened. And we see, speaking of exaggerating the breasts, exaggerating the pelvis. So this figurine we might say it's more exaggerated for its fertility feature, right? And protruding nose, so nose exaggerated. So it might be the sense of smell, might have something to do with them. Whatever, form follows function. Form follows function. If I can repeat again, form follows function. This is a line that you have to remember for any artistry courses. Because we need to, that's why we describe or analyze or think about the form, right? Because it follows the function. It has to do something, must do with the function. You see the dress, or maybe a scarf, something like that. Is this an ear? But what we know is the protruding nose, right? Exaggerated breasts, pelvis, all these parts, right, related to birth, childbirth. And that's why it gets a appearance like this. Okay, that's the first step of being a art historian. Some logical thinking. Okay, very lastly, I just want to mention one last thing about Japan, about periodization. Or maybe I'll talk about periodization like next lecture.